Hey everyone, welcome to the practice round for Windswept Fields, getting ready for the Disc Golf Valley Players Tour Week 3. Windswept Fields has a little bit different of a philosophy for me. I'm not necessarily trying to ace run everything. Actually, I'm not ace running anything here. I'm trying to get close and not blow up. Typically, this is an accurate roll musket on this hole. With the forward tailwind, I'm going to throw my warship out there, same backhand just over that rock, and get close. Windswept Field is about getting close so you don't 2 and 3 putt. And then if you don't get close, making sure that on the comebacker, you're still close enough to at least not 3 putt. So I'll try this one more time with maybe a new different wind. It's right to left here, so I'm going to go forehand. And then because I'm forehand, I'll go up to the accurate roll sapphire inside of the musket. And just throw it close to the basket and practice it accounting for the wind. If accounting for the wind is not something you're comfortable with, then you probably shouldn't be getting too aggressive on a lot of these. Make sure you're disking down and don't go flying past the basket. Hole 2 here, it is a par 4. The game on this hole is make sure you don't get a 4. Make sure at worst you're 3. This is a glide roll ride for me in this wind coming out here pretty wide. And I want the roll ride because it's going to be coming in with a lot of speed when it gets next to the basket there. And wants to slow down and stop and get in range for a putt. Try a slightly different wind going in there, but you're almost always going to be taking a drive here. If it's a headwind, you're going to want something to skip. If it's that tailwind, you're going to want it to stop. If you have a little bit more of a left to right, you might go glide water skip. Let's see, this is a little bit of a headwind. So let's see here. I'll go glide skip, get it out a little bit wider, and hopefully skip down the hill there, let the wind push me a bit more from that right to left. If you end up way away from the basket here and you're not confident about making that putt or making the throw in, err on the side of throwing a little bit softer rather than too hard so that you don't end up too far from the basket. In a right to left wind here, it's a glide roll ride, aimed down just below the basket with the top of that chevron. And then a 4 is about a quarter disc of hyzer. If it's a 3 wind, you're about a half disc of hyzer. So it's 4 with a quarter disc of hyzer. On the forehand with a glide roll ride is getting up there close to the basket. This hole is whatever you do, stay away from the water. They get a little bit trickier if you have a left to right wind. See if I can get one here in a sec that I can show you off with this 3 tailwind. You could even disc down to an accurate glide sapphire if you want. Just give it a little bit more hyzer. It's going to come out earlier, and it should still slide up there pretty well. A little bit further out here, so it might have a bit of a throw in. The 51 feet. You can go to the putting with the wind, so you don't have to deal with the wind as much. If you're with that 51, 52, I'll switch to the putt anyway there. Try one more, see if we get a left to right to work with. Here we go. This is one of the more difficult winds. I go glide water skip just to really make sure because I'm not as confident with that clear. Make sure I get across. This, I know I'm going to go a bit further past the basket if I clear it because I did clear the water. But for me, that's worth it when I'm not 100% confident on getting across that water. Okay, this is a 4 tailwind. Strong winds. Go to the forehand throw-in. You take off 30 feet of power to go back going forehand instead of backhand. So I'm going to throw this at about 60 feet of power. And that tailwind lifts it up, and the forehand takes some off of it. Let's go ahead to the next hole. This is a sapphire or a glide roll drive again. The sapphire will clear across unless you have a headwind. You want to err on this one and being just a little bit out to the right side. If you hit right side of this basket, you're likely to hit the hillside and curl up back towards the basket. If you hit the left side of the basket on the ground, you have a good chance of really flying off to the left there and not coming back. That's the sapphire option. This tailwind, I definitely go with sapphire again, maybe an accurate roll sapphire, just to make sure I'm not taking off too far. Just making small adjustments. Small adjustments based on the wind. I got lucky to roll back a bit there, but I had a chance because it hit left side of the basket to really take off away. If you do have a headwind, make sure you switch up to that glide roll drive or glide roll distance driver of choice to make sure that you're really clearing that pond. Here's one where I would go glide roll drive, aim just about at the basket with a little bit of Anheuser. Gets across by this rock on the left here, that big rock. No concern at all because you're within putting range. 55, let's go with the hope. 55 downhill is indeed putting range. Let's go ahead and move on to hole 5. Hole 5, it's getting across this, basically aim straight at the basket with your rive. We're going to do a glide roll, go down a little bit so the wind doesn't take it as much, and straight across, blast it. If you have the rive to get you over here, this should be an eagle after making the wind adjustments. There's another line if we get a right to left wind. Try a couple times, see if I can get that right to left wind. There we go. We can go to the left of this tree. The tippy top of that tree doesn't actually have any collision, but I still try not to mess with it. Did there. Oh boy. Well, I was able to get that collision. Maybe that changed a bit. Did that change in a recent one? Let me know if that's something that changed recently. So you can go forehand, but make sure you get around that tree. I used to not worry about that tree so much. Maybe that changed recently. Well, that's why we do the practice round, to learn things like that and make sure that doesn't happen when we're playing in the Players Tour. So it's either backhand, low and straight at the basket, or the forehand getting up and around that tree in the middle. All right, this is either a warship or an accurate wind fuse. A right to left wind takes the warship, get it high and around here, and it's just a matter of getting close to the basket. Don't expect the ace. I think I've hit this ace once ever, and it wasn't even in multiplayer. It was just a practice round. But that warship getting around the right side is going to get you in there. If you have this left to right wind, my preference is take the accurate wind fuse, make sure I don't get too high because I get some branches up high, and throw it up the gut here. Even getting a little bit of branches or leaves on the way there is going to leave you close to the basket. Another option, if you don't have the fuse or you're not comfortable with that, is come around the left side here with a musket, get it up enough height so that it can fade back towards the basket. Obviously, that's one, I'm not that close to the basket, so I'm not as comfortable with it, but it is still putting range, which if you get in putting range on Windswept field, you got a good chance for that birdie. Let's move on to hole 7. Hole 7s get lowered around this tree. This tree used to be very friendly to get through with very little collision. Now it has a lot of collision in it. So my favorite play is an accurate roll or accurate sticky harp, and just throw it low, snug next to that tree. No branches ever come into play, and you're almost always within about 60 feet there, even if you have a left or right wind. If you cut it close to that tree, you have a good chance for getting in for that birdie. This is another helping wind. Get down low and throw it close by the tree to be able to have that putt for birdie. I'll do one more, see if we can get a different wind, like a unhelpful wind or a left to right, even a headwind. So you can show that one. It's very, very similar. Windswept Fields is all about making the adjustments for wind, which makes sense. It's why this course is fun and different, because the holes aren't particularly hard, but they're holes where you have to make wind adjustments. Every hole here has a 3 and 4 wind. Looks like I might not get that wind to show you, but the left-right wind, you can just aim, as you can imagine, a little bit more left. Let the wind push it more. This is a hole that is ace runnable, but I'm not sure if the accurate river gets there on forehand. If you're watching my videos, you know it's a new disc for me. But okay, that was really sketchy. So on the forehand with this wind, I think I do have to go musket and make sure I get across more cleanly. Yep. So if I get that headwind, I'll be taking the musket on the forehand across. This is another tree that used to have not very much collision, but it does now, so you need to be more careful as you're clearing it. See, I go to forehand when I have that 3 wind to work with. If you have a tailwind, then that the river will get across, or a musket. Let's see here, a little bit more. See, if I bail out to the right, that river's getting across and keeping me close enough for the throw in. This is one, if you bag a water skip disc, a water skip fairway, you could play that low and take the skip to take some of the speed off when you're coming in. That's not something I bag, so it's not in my playbook, but I know some good players who have that water skip fairway will skip off the water in front of the basket to help make sure to stay close. Windswept Field 9 is always a 3 wind in a random direction. You never have a 1, 2, or 4 wind here. So there's always accurate wind fuse. And then this is my height, and my aim is left or right, just depending on wind adjustments. It comes close, and it might feel sketchy, but this will always make the island with that height, even if the worst of a 3 wind, and you're going to be close to the basket here. And of course, if you're feeling desperate, you can ace run this with something like a warship or an explorer. But for the most part, no matter what the wind is, take the accurate wind fuse, make some minor wind adjustments with the hyzer or angle, and throw it low and straight towards this basket to make sure you're close. Good luck in windswept fields. Remember, if you end up out of position and your risk is pretty high, you don't have a high confidence in making the shot, don't be afraid to lay up, or just make sure that your miss at least keeps you close to the basket so that you can stay bogey free.